So good afternoon and welcome to this Law Week webinar. Our series this Law Week is called People in the Law, and today's webinar is about Ombudsman services, and you'll be able to meet presenters from 5 different Ombudsman services. Today's webinar will go for an hour and a half, and at the end of the webinar you'll receive a survey, and we do really appreciate receiving your feedback. Before we commence, I'll introduce you to the presenters today. So we have Jacqueline Friedman from the New South Wales Ombudsman's Service. We also have Stephanie Sale from the Electricity and Water Ombudsman's Service. We have Brianna Butt from the Healthcare Complaints Commission. We have April Blair from the Australian Financial Complaints Authority. And we have Craig Latham from the Australian Small Business Family Enterprise Ombudsman. So thank you everybody for joining us. I would like to firstly acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands from which we are broadcasting today. I'm broadcasting from the lands of the Bundjalung Nation here in Lismore. We pay our respects to the elders of the land, both past, present and emerging. And we extend that respect to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people joining us today or watching the recording of this webinar. My name's Bridget Barker and I work in the Community Legal Education branch at Legal Aid New South Wales. So thank you for joining us, and I'll now hand over to Jacqueline, who is going to speak to you firstly about the role of the New South Wales Ombudsman.
Thank you, Bridget, and welcome everybody. I'm joining you from Gadigal country. Today I'll be running through the role of the New South Wales Ombudsman with an emphasis on our complaint handling function. Next slide, please, Bridget. We are a parliamentary ombudsman, which means we're independent of government and we focus on government agencies in New South Wales. Ombudsman means citizen's defender in Swedish. We began our operations in 1975 as one of the first parliamentary ombudsmen in the country, and in Australia, every state and territory now has one. While our functions may differ slightly, complaint handling is at the core of all of the parliamentary ombudsmen. In New South Wales, we are part of what is often termed the integrity branch of government, and I've set out some other agencies that we sit alongside in that sphere. We cover maladministration, which is a bit of a mouthful. This means government decision-making done badly. What triggers our powers is conduct that is unreasonable, unjust, oppressive, discriminatory, or just plain wrong. As well as Ombudsman Act functions and powers, we also have functions under community services legislation, which I'll cover shortly. Next slide, please, Bridget. So fairness underpins everything we do. We cover state and local government agencies in New South Wales and some community services providers. And we exist to manage complaints about those agencies with the overall intent to improve public administration and to improve service delivery for the people of New South Wales. Next slide, please. Some of our other functions, in addition to complaint handling, include monitoring, review and oversight. We are the lead agency for public sector whistleblowing, which means we help public servants understand their role, and we encourage public sector agencies to improve a speak-up culture, meaning staff should be encouraged and supported to speak up about wrongdoing, including corruption, waste and bad decision-making. Next slide, please, Bridget. Other ways we can improve public administration including getting out into the community. It helps us keep in touch with community sentiment and to receive complaints about government organisations. We tend to focus in that outreach work on segments of the community that may find it difficult to access our services online, and also where people appreciate the personal connection. You can see in these pictures our staff out and about at a human rights conference during World Pride Week, where we focused on discrimination complaints. In the middle, you can see us at a community event for migrants and refugees. And the final picture shows a couple of our First Nations staff members at a NAIDOC Week event. Next slide, please, Bridget. We also issue public reports, which helps us advise government and puts on record into the public domain our concerns, our recommendations, and any reform proposals. 3 of those reports are on the screen. I won't go into detail, but I will note that the first was published by our Child Death Review team, and it covered and made recommendations in relation to how better use of child restraints could improve and reduce child deaths in New South Wales, and made recommendations to government about greater accessibility to effective child restraints. The middle report was one of 2 reports we issued relating to the pandemic. We examined the government response. We highlighted where the government had done well, but we called out where they had not done so well, and we made recommendations about improvements in any future crisis situation. One of the things we noted was that there was no central point for people to complain about issues relating to COVID, such as hotel quarantine or fines or other things of that nature. And the third report on the screen related to a report we put out about difficulties young people face in that 12 to 15 age bracket in accessing homelessness services. Next slide, please, Bridget. Now, this is a very busy slide, but that is done to emphasise just how vast our jurisdiction is. So we can deal with complaints relating to state government agencies such as Revenue New South Wales and Fair Trading. Next box, please. We handle complaints about jails, youth justice centres and justice health. Next box, please. We handle complaints about the child protection system and out-of-home care and the children's guardian. Next box, please. We handle complaints about things such as specialist homelessness services and supports to families. Next box. Public housing is in our jurisdiction, which includes community housing and maintenance services. Next box, please. We have a role in the public health system. We don't focus on treatment or failure to provide treatment in the way that the Healthcare Complaints Commission does. We focus on administrative decisions in the health sector, such as how resources are allocated or how money is spent. Next box, please. Our jurisdiction covers the New South Wales public school system. And next box, it also covers the tertiary education system, the public system, so TAFE and public universities. Next box, please. Every New South Wales local council is within our jurisdiction, and we can look at how they make decisions or how they deliver services and whether they're done unreasonably or badly. And then the final box refers back to our monitoring role in relation to certain Aboriginal programs. So as you can see, it's a huge, huge jurisdiction that we cover. Next slide, please, Bridget. So I've covered a number of agencies that people might bring complaints to us about. I'd like to turn now to give you some examples of the types of things people complain about in relation to those agencies. I won't go through all the boxes, but just a couple of examples. A tenant in social housing may complain that they can't get maintenance done, and that as a result of water leaks, dangerous mould is growing throughout their home, putting their health at risk. Another type of complaint might come from a parent of a child with disability who's not able to access the proper supports they need to support their learning in the classroom. Or a parent might complain that their child has been suspended from school and isn't being given proper homework to be able to continue with their learning. I'm conscious of time, so I'll move to the next slide. And this covers how people complain to us and what we do or may do in response. So in the last financial year, we received 27,500 contacts from people accessing our services, which was an increase of over 10% from the previous year. So it's roughly 100 contacts we receive from people a day. And this graphic shows how people choose to contact us. We try to be as accessible as possible. People can make complaints over the phone. We have a complaints line open during business hours, and that is clearly the most popular method. People can use our online complaint form or choose to contact us by email. Other agencies can notify us of complaints where someone has complained to them, for example, another integrity agency such as ICAC, but the complaint is better handled by us, so it's referred to us. People can come into our office and complain in person. We also have a program of visiting adult jails and youth justice centres so that people who may feel uncomfortable ringing us, and they can ring us from prison or youth justice centre, they can complain to us in person when we go and visit. And also we still offer the ability to post complaints to us. And then finally, we are able to initiate a complaint in effect from our own motion. So if we become aware of an issue in the media or in a parliamentary inquiry, for example, we don't have to wait for a complaint to come to us. We can be proactive. So when we receive complaints, oh, sorry, I hadn't finished with that slide. Sorry, Bridget. Sometimes we don't take any action. Sometimes the best thing to do is to let the agency try and sort the matter out for themselves. This can be quicker. It also helps the agency restore trust with the person who's received the service or the decision. So sometimes the best course of action is to say to the agency, you need to sort this out with the person who's complained. We can make inquiries of agencies, and sometimes merely asking questions gets the agency to rethink their position, and that can often lead to a resolution. We can refer matters onto agencies where the person has come direct to us and we want the agency to act, so we can put it back on them in effect to resolve it locally. We can also conciliate complaints. So we offer conciliation services, and sometimes that's a really good way for us, being impartial and objective, to bring the parties together to reach a mutually satisfactory outcome for themselves. We can suggest service delivery improvements or better ways to do things by making comments or suggestions to an agency. And then finally, we can conduct a formal investigation. And when we do that, we have very significant powers to make agencies produce documents or things and to provide us with the information we need. Next slide, please. So why should somebody complain to us? What are the types of things that we can offer? We can't make an agency do anything or make an order in the way that a court can. We also can't substitute our own decision for the agency. If we think it's unfair or wrong, we can't say this is the decision that should have been made and then that's the decision the person lives with. But what we can do, and we do, is to persuade and to convince agencies to come to a resolution with the person who's complained about them. We do that with facts and reasons. So the types of outcomes we might achieve include having the person who's complained have a fine refunded or even waived so they don't have to pay it. getting an agency to rethink a decision and then reversing that decision with us persuading them but not telling them to do so. We can't make them. Where somebody might be in dire straits and there have been delays already, we can encourage the agency to fast track a decision so that that person, the risks to that person are reduced. And we can suggest changes in law, practice and procedure to assist a single person, but also to improve things for others longer term. And then finally, sometimes all someone wants is an apology. They want an acknowledgement by the agency that they didn't do the right thing by that person. It might be the person had to wait far too long to receive a payment they were entitled to, or it might be the agency didn't take all the relevant information into account in making a decision, which turns out to not be a reasonable decision. So final slide, please, Bridget. That is a very brief snapshot of the work that we do and how we do it. I hope it's given you a better understanding of the role and purpose of the New South Wales Ombudsman. You can find out more on our website. You can ring us or contact us by email, and we're also on Facebook, X and LinkedIn. Back to you, Bridget.
Thank you, Jacqueline, for that very clear explanation. I'd like to welcome Brianna Butt from the Healthcare Complaints Commission to present now. And I just wanted to remind the audience to please use the Q&A box to ask questions. You can ask them at any time and you can send questions anonymously if you wish. Thanks, Brianna.
Thanks, Bridget, and hello to everyone. I'm going to be talking to you today about the Healthcare Complaints Commission and our work in protecting public health and safety. Jumping to that next slide. Thank you, Bridget. Our work at the Commission is independent and impartial, and our legislation mandates that we work in that way. We manage complaints about healthcare services provided in New South Wales in different ways. We look at health organisations, whether they be hospitals, medical centres or day surgeries, for example. The majority of our work looks at registered practitioners, doctors, nurses, chiropractors, dentists, physiotherapists. But we also look at unregistered practitioners. That might be someone getting a massage, someone seeing a counsellor, or different types of therapists. And the next slide, please, Bridget. The crux of our work is really about promoting and assessing better and safer healthcare. So at the centre of everything that the Commission does really are the people who have the courage to speak up about their experience, and then the openness of health providers to respond when things go wrong. This often requires a lot of insight into health providers, but is important to the process. And it's through that individual complaint that there's potential for healing and knowledge that will help to drive improvement in care and treatment in the future. Thank you, Bridget. So who can make a complaint? A complaint may be made by any person. It could be the person who experienced the problem, so a patient, for example. It could be a family member, or partner, or a friend. It could be a carer. It could be someone in the public who has just witnessed something that's made them concerned. In addition, we also receive complaints from other health professionals and other regulatory bodies, and particularly referrals from the New South Wales Police for serious matters. It's important to realise that we're not able to proceed with a complaint if it's lodged by a family member, for example, unless we have the consent of the person who experienced the problem. Thank you, Bridget. So how can members of the public raise concerns about healthcare? If it's appropriate, we always like to encourage people to contact the doctor or the person at the health service to see if they can help. So in most cases, we welcome feedback. They will welcome feedback and work with the person to try and resolve the complaint. There are tips on our website, for example, about preparing for that phone call or that meeting to try and assist you with certain things to say prior to that meeting. If it can't be resolved in that way, we ask that you make a complaint to the Commission. Making a complaint to the Commission means it has to be in writing, and our legislation sets that out. There is a link to the portal on our website, which is on the screen now. You can also request a form. You can send us an email, or you can write us a letter. And if you have a question or if you need help, it's best to call our inquiry line, which is there on the screen. It's important for us, though, to make sure that there are no, sorry, Bridget, you're too quick for me. It's important to make sure that there are no barriers to people making a complaint. We do have that inquiry service that can answer questions and provide information about making a complaint. They will listen and provide information about it and help to direct you to go to the right place if we're not the best place to for a particular matter. For example, we might receive a call from someone concerned about hygiene standards in an aged care facility, and the Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission would be best placed to manage that type of complaint. Yet, if the complaint was about the way medication was being administered in an aged care facility, that would be a complaint for the Commission to consider. And we understand that navigating the right place can be complex, and this is why our inquiry line is an excellent first stop with anyone for a concern. Thanks, Bridget. So what can the Commission do? The Commission assesses every written complaint that it receives. We have legislative powers to investigate and prosecute serious complaints. However, many complaints can be resolved in other ways, for example, via our resolution service. We can also refer complaints to a health professional council or to another regulatory body if they are best placed to manage concerns. And not all complaints require further action, but all complaints are considered in good faith and can help to improve the healthcare system. It might be necessary to consider or have regard to the fact of what we can't do. We can't force a health provider, a doctor, for example, to offer or deliver a particular service. We also can't force that health provider to apologise for certain conduct that's alleged against him or her. We can't order that health provider to refund money or provide a service at reduced cost. And we can't direct that medical records be changed. So just to give some examples of what we can't ask. Moving now to a case study, but I'll quickly refer to, which is an example of a prosecution that's on the public record. The Commission prosecuted 3 separate complaints against an ear, nose and throat surgeon, Mr. Roland von Marburg, who practiced in the Albury-Wodonga area. That hearing occurred before NCAT, which is the New South Wales Civil and Administrative Tribunal. The complaints alleged serious clinical and unethical conduct involving more than 30 patients, spanning from 2008 to 2016, including performing surgery and conducting procedures without clinical indication, providing inappropriate management, care and advice to patients, failing to provide adequate pre-operative and post-operative care, and failing to obtain informed consent, failing to keep adequate records, for example. The complaint also alleged impairment due to opioid dependence and prescribing to patients in circumstances where some of the medication was for personal use. The tribunal found that Mr. von Marburg did suffer from an impairment and found that he was also guilty of professional misconduct. Mr. von Marburg was found to have engaged in 18 proven instances of clinical incompetence, and that this conduct was found to have caused a number of patients to suffer serious and ongoing consequences. The tribunal also found that Mr. von Marburg was dishonest with the Commission and the Medical Council of New South Wales, and disqualified Mr. von Marburg from being registered as a medical practitioner for a period of 8 years. A different case study in our resolution space relates to, it gives an example of other ways to resolve complaints to make healthcare better and safer for future patients. The Commission in this matter received a complaint from a young mother whose baby required weekly head ultrasounds in a special care nursery environment, and the procedure was 2 days overdue. The complaint was assessed immediately upon receipt for referral to the resolution service. The resolution officer made direct contact with the hospital, and the ultrasound was attended to on the same day. With the immediate patient safety issue addressed, the resolution process proceeded in the form of informal meetings with the complainant and the hospital clinical governance representative. The cause of the delay was identified and openly addressed through this process. The radiology department had considered the high level of lighting in the nursery to compromise imaging, and nursery staff had considered the transport of very sick newborns through the hospital to radiology to be a clinical risk. The hospital was willing to address this by offering bedside ultrasound and X-ray services to high risk and high need patients, including the special care nursery babies. The assisted resolution gave this mother a voice and enabled the hospital to introduce new risk management procedures for the benefit of future patients. Thank you for listening today and hearing the examples of some of the work of the Healthcare Complaints Commission. Thank you, Bridget.
Thank you, Brianna. And I'd now like to welcome Stephanie Sale from the Energy and Water Ombudsman to speak to you about what their service can offer people. Thanks, Stephanie. Sorry, I realised I was on mute and I was trying to apologise to the audience. Unfortunately, Stephanie's mic is not working. We tested everything before we began the webinar, and for some reason, technology is letting us down this afternoon. It's not working at the moment. What I might do, Stephanie, is move to our next presenter. If everyone will just bear with us, apologies for this technical problem. Stephanie, apologies everybody. I'd like to introduce you to April Blair from the Australian Financial Complaints Authority and welcome April to speak to you about what AFCA do. Thanks, April.
Thanks, everyone. And apologies for the technical problem. So my name's April Blair. I'm a Senior Ombudsman at the Australian Financial Complaints Authority. And the area that I work in is the banking and finance jurisdiction. I'm the Senior Ombudsman in the financial hardship space. So I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about AFCA and explain what it is that we do. I would also like to echo Bridget's sentiments and acknowledge the traditional owners on the lands upon which we're meeting this afternoon. I'm also coming to you from Bundjalung country today. Next slide, please. So this has been touched on, but basically AFCA is an external dispute resolution service, and so we are governed by the 5 principles set out there to be accessible, independent, fair, accountable, and also be efficient and effective. So AFCA is an alternative to court, and we provide a service that is not like a court system, which is adversarial where people need to present arguments, but an inquisitorial approach. So we investigate complaints that are made by people, and then we provide a binding decision at the end of that complaint. Just moving to the next slide, please. So we were established in 2018, and basically AFCA is your one-stop shop for lodging complaints about any organisation that holds an Australian financial services licence. So that includes banks, insurance companies, financial advisors and superannuation funds. So we're free for people and small business to come to us to make complaints of that nature. Next slide, please, Bridget. So our approach is, a bit different to the courts. We're essentially a more informal service where you can make a complaint online or over the phone, and we decide complaints by contacting parties by email or otherwise over the telephone, getting information, and then hoping to resolve the complaint by way of negotiation, or in less than 10% of cases, some matters need to go through to somebody like me, who is an ombudsman, to make a determination. So when we make a decision, we essentially take those 5 key considerations into consideration when we come to a decision. So what the law says, if there's any industry codes or guidance, what we consider to be good industry practice, if there's any previous decisions that have dealt with the same issue, and we also have a fairness jurisdiction. So ultimately, we want to come to a decision that's fair. Next slide, please. And I'll just get you to click again, Bridget. We did this earlier. So some of the things that we can consider, and this is just a snapshot, it certainly isn't all of the things. We can consider errors in banking transactions and credit listings, and this includes a whole range of things. So pretty much any complaint that you have about your bank. So scams is a big topic at the moment. Financial hardship is another area that's received a lot of scrutiny in the media lately. Also, if a bank closes your account and you disagree with that, if there's transactions that you dispute, or just even if you think that the bank hasn't offered you the correct service that it should have. We can also consider insurance matters, so denial of insurance claims, delay in insurers making decisions, or disputes where a claim is accepted where there could be a dispute about the scope of works. We can consider complaints about inappropriate investment advice, and then also superannuation claims. And that includes things like death benefits, total and permanent disability and income protection claims through insurance, but also just about, superannuation account closures or transfers and things like that. So really a whole bunch of things. Just moving on, please. So there are some things that we can't consider. And if we can't consider your complaint, you can lodge one and we'll tell you. So things we can't consider are complaints about a business that wasn't a member of AFCA at the time the complaint was lodged. And some examples of that are, at the moment, buy now, pay later organisations, are a voluntary member of AFCA. So the majority of buy now, pay later organisations are members of AFCA, but may not have always been. We can't consider complaints where they've already been dealt with by a court or a tribunal, or one of AFCA's predecessor schemes. We can't consider some complaints where they're subject to legal proceedings, and we also can't consider certain insurance complaints, such as your CTP, your compulsory green slip insurance. We don't consider complaints about private health insurance. There's a different ombudsman for that. And also just some general commercial insurance products. The other thing to remember is we can't consider a complaint about a bank's decision about whether or not they offer you credit or not. So if a bank declines to offer you credit, we can't consider a complaint about that. And there are some exceptions, such as where a bank has loaned you money and you allege that they've breached their responsible lending obligations. Just moving on. So we have a compensation cap is what we call it. And so what that means is we can consider complaints and award compensation up to $631,500 per claim. We also can award non-financial loss compensation. So that's where if you can't establish that you've suffered an actual loss, but the way that the bank or the insurance company or superannuation fund has treated you has caused you some stress and inconvenience, we can also award up to $6,300 per complaint or per claim for non-financial loss. But there's a range of other things that we can do too. So we can order that an insurer has to accept a claim. We can order that security for a debt needs to be released. In financial hardship or responsible lending matters, we can order that the terms of the contract are varied. So to allow somebody to remain in their home where they've been experiencing financial hardship. And we can also order that a fee or interest be repaid, waived, or varied. Just moving on, please. So these are just some of the things that you can expect if you do lodge a complaint with AFCA. We're an independent service. So when a matter comes through to us, we look at it afresh. And so we provide an independent decision based on the facts and circumstances of each particular case. We have experienced complaint resolution staff. We also have respectful engagement from our staff who will listen to questions and concerns. And we offer a service that we hope is accessible to everybody. So we have interpreters, including on-land interpreters. We're happy to take information over the phone. If you have difficulties with technology, we can send out things in the post and all sorts of things like that. Okay, just moving on, please. So some people like data, other people don't, but this is just a bit of an idea as to, you know, the volume of complaints and what type of complaints we receive. So last year, in the last 12 months, we've received over 100,000 complaints. The majority of those complaints fall in the banking and finance space, and second to that are complaints about insurance companies. So overwhelmingly, we're seeing a huge increase year on year of complaints being lodged with AFCA. I think on this year, we're sort of tracking to receive over 110,000 complaints. Just moving on. So I think these are important things, you know, and a lot of people are concerned about when they lodge a complaint with a court or with an ombudsman scheme, they need to have all of the legal knowledge and everything like that in order to lodge a complaint. That's certainly not our expectation at AFCA. What we want you to do is just tell us what the problem is in your own words, and you don't have to worry about articulating the law, referring to previous decisions, you know, outlining any of the code requirements or anything like that. So we want to know what your complaint's about. We also want to know if there's any issues facing you in terms of how you interact with our service. We want to communicate with you, and we want to make the process as easy for people as possible. So in terms of when to contact us, we encourage you to try and sort the matter out first with your financial firm. And then if you lodge a complaint, you know, if you're unsatisfied with the response provided by the financial firm, you can lodge a complaint. And generally, we encourage you to come to us after you've had your complaint resolved by the financial firm. But that's not a hard and fast rule. If you haven't made a complaint to your financial firm, you can come to us anyway, and that complaint will be referred back to them. And we do find a lot of people who are having great challenges dealing with their financial firm come to us, and then we're able to resolve over 65% of complaints at that initial stage when complaints are lodged with AFCA. Just moving on, please. So lodging a complaint's easy. At the moment, we have an online complaint form, or you can lodge complaints over the phone, or you could also email us and lodge a complaint. This is just a snapshot of what the complaint lodgement form currently looks like, and it allows you to first search for the financial firm. And so all of the financial firms who are members with AFCA are there, and it should be relatively easy to find who it is you want to make a complaint about. After that, you just tell us what type of service it is, and then put in a free text box what the nature of your complaint is. Once that happens, the complaint is registered with our registration and referral team, and then it will proceed through a case management process where it will be investigated, where you might undergo conciliation. So seeing if you can speak with the conciliator and sort out the issue that you have with the financial firm. And ultimately, a small number of complaints go through to decision, which is called a determination. So I just wanted to talk briefly. I think it's always helpful to sort of outline a little bit about, a particular area at AFCA to give some context. So the area that I work in is complaints about financial difficulty and financial hardship. So things that we can consider are, if you're in financial hardship, we can consider whether the bank has declined or failed to respond to your request for hardship. Other things are if you think that you've received a default notice that's incorrect or a default listing on your credit file. If a bank continues debt recovery action where you've made a hardship request, and also in circumstances where you might have received a default court judgment in relation to a debt. Next slide, please. So these are some of the common resolutions that we can give in financial hardship complaints. The most common being, we see complaints where people ask for a variation of the credit contract. And that can be lower repayments for a period of time, extending the loan term, capitalisation of any arrears that might have occurred, postponing repayments, or reducing the loan interest rate for a shorter or longer term. Types of things that we can do are all of those things. We can also look at whether a financial firm has breached its obligations that it owes to you in terms of identifying, assessing, and providing you with genuine consideration for your request for hardship. We also strongly encourage people to get advice from free financial counsellors to assist them in understanding, whether it's a realistic option to be in a position to vary a contract. And I'll just move on quickly to a case study. So this was a matter that I actually dealt with recently. It involved a complaint made by a single person who was receiving income protection payments. Now, she had 2 loans with the bank. One of her loans was on a fixed rate and one loan had just reverted to a variable rate. Because the loans had reverted to variable rates, this particular person found that she had her loans in arrears, and they were small arrears. And she spoke with the bank about clearing the arrears and refixing the rates on both loans so that they remained affordable. Now, the bank was open to this, but what happens is if your loan's in arrears, you can't apply to fix your interest rate until you bring the loan back up out of arrears. And the complainant did that on one of her loans and fixed the interest rate. She then had an agreement with the bank that when she received her next income protection payment, she would make the payment to the account that had the variable interest rate, and then she would speak to the bank about fixing the arrears on that account. Now, unfortunately, what happened was her income protection payments were paid into the account with a fixed interest rate. And the bank refused to refund those payments and apply them to the other loan so she could fix the other interest rate. We had a look into this complaint and we found that the bank had breached its hardship obligations that it owed to her. It should have reversed the payment to the incorrect account and then allowed her an opportunity to fix the interest rate on the loan. What we did in that matter was we refunded the interest that was charged by the bank to put the complainant back in the same position that she would have been in had the bank honoured the agreement that it had made. And we also awarded her the maximum in non-financial loss compensation, which at that point in time was $5,400 because of the way the bank treated her. So this allowed her to remain in her home. Yeah, if you need any more information, these slides will be distributed afterwards, but there's quite a bit of information on our website or can be obtained over the phone. Thanks.
Thanks very much, April. And I'll go back to, I'll just check with you, Stephanie, that we can hear you now so that we can see if you're...
Does it work? Please say it works.
It does. It does. Okay.
I'm sorry, Bridget. Thanks, April, for stepping in.
Craig, if that's all right with you, we'll go back to Stephanie's presentation about E1 and then we'll come to you. Sorry, everybody. I'm just not going to test the technology further by changing the share screen. I'm just going to flick through and I'm sorry if it's hurting your eyes. Okay, I'd like to welcome Stephanie Sale, Manager of Governance at E1 to present now. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thanks, Bridget, and thanks everyone for accommodating my tech issues. I appreciate it. So I'm Stephanie Sale. I'm in Sydney today, so I'm on Gadigal land. And today I'm going to take you on a whirlwind tour of the Energy and Water Ombudsman, which we also call E1. So E1, the Energy and Water Ombudsman, we're a free, fair and independent dispute resolution scheme, like you've heard from the other schemes who have presented today. So we do require customers to try and resolve their complaint with their provider prior to lodging a complaint with us. However, when there are extenuating circumstances, vulnerability, health issues, or other reasons, we may take a complaint up on a first call. Next slide, please, Bridget. So most of our complaints we get directly from customers of energy and water providers, but we also do work with advocates and community workers. We accept authority to act or agency authorities. We have our own on our website. If you don't have one, that allows advocates to quickly and easily lodge complaints on behalf of their clients. Most people contact our office through by phone or use our online complaint form. We're quite partial to phone contact because we get all those benefits of the two-way conversation. Next slide, please, Bridget. So E1 members, so any company operating, selling or providing electricity or gas in New South Wales is required to be a member of E1. So customers can lodge a complaint about any of their providers in New South Wales. With water, we don't cover the whole state. It's the big water providers, Sydney Water and Hunter Water, and some small water providers as well. Unfortunately, all of the local councils out in regional New South Wales who are also water providers, they aren't members, with the exception of Shoalhaven. But when these customers contact us, we give them appropriate referrals of where they can get help. Next slide, thanks. So what do we look at? What kind of complaints can come to us? What's in our jurisdiction? Our bread and butter complaints are really around billing. Customers most commonly come to us about problems with their bills, difficulty paying and credit. We do get quite a few also customer service issues, but we cover any kind of complaint about energy and water services. We undertake some really complex investigations involving supply issues, credit listings, claims for damages to property. So if you have a client who has something unusual, don't hesitate to contact us. We have a no wrong door policy. So if it is something that we can't help with, we provide those appropriate referrals. Next slide. So when to refer a customer to us or one of your clients to us. So you can refer any issue to E1, but these are just some of the red flags that might prompt you to refer a client to E1. The big one being disconnection. When a customer presents on the phone or we get an email online and they have been disconnected or threatened with imminent disconnection, we take that case on the first call, that complaint on the first call. Same goes for water. It's a restriction of water, but again, because of the immediate action required, we take that on straight away. So why refer clients to E1? We really do think that when we work closely with advocates, our specialist knowledge about the way energy and water works, not just the laws and codes, but also the good industry practice really complements working with advocates to resolve issues, whether it be billing issues, credit payment difficulty issues, all the different issues. As providers, members of E1, we also have pathways to quickly escalate complaints when we need. And also the big thing for us too is that we play an important role in identifying systemic issues and reporting to government and regulators. So the broader complaint data that we capture through individual complaints is richer and makes our contribution to improve, to drive better improvements, just that much richer when we get a broad range of complaints. This is a case study. This is a case study that you may have seen. There was media reports from this one a few years back, and this one was a big win for hardship customers. So this was one where we received a number of complaints about one provider, all in relation to customers' experience vulnerability, and some customers who had been disconnected or cancelled their payment plans. As part of what we do with systemic issues is we identify that multiple customers could be impacted, so we bundle them up and we do a complete investigation. The outcome of this one, and then with this one, we referred the matter to the Australian Energy Regulator. So we refer all of our systemic issues periodically to the regulator for further investigation. The regulator in this case took further action, and it was a really pleasing outcome that the provider agreed to waive a whole lot of customer debt, of great impact to those 400 affected customers. That wasn't just restricted to New South Wales as well, it affected other states, but this was just the outcome relevant to those customers in New South Wales. I've spoken a bit already about systemic issues, and that case study really highlighted the work that we do in systemic issues. We have published systemic issues reports on our website. We call them Spotlight On. The most recent one is on the long-term impacts following a natural disaster. And we've got earlier ones, we've been issuing them for the last couple of years. We've got one on hot water, can't remember, one on transferring providers. So you can have a look at our website if you want to have a look at those other Spotlight On systemic issue reports. Our policy and systemic issues team is always busy with submissions. There's lots going on always, I think, in the energy and water space, and so that keeps them busy. But all of our submissions are available also on our website. There's a lot happening in energy with what's changes to what they call consumer energy resources, which are solar and battery, new technologies. So there's lots going on in the transition energy space. And so if you're interested in or want to keep up to date, you can have a look at the information that's available on our website. Many of you may be aware of what are known as EPA. They're called vouchers. They used to be old paper vouchers. They used to come in a book, you know, and clients would go to what was then St Vincent de Paul or whatever, and they would hand out the little vouchers. It's now all an online application, but can't get out of the habit of the language of calling them vouchers. So you probably already know about the EPA vouchers, Energy Account Payment Assistant vouchers. We refer a lot of customers to EPA providers to be assessed for assistance. They're a really good way, the voucher system, for customers to access immediate relief when they're faced with a large bill, or something's happened urgently and they've got a real inability to pay. They've had to put their funds into something else that's more urgent, whatever it is. These are a great system that are available to customers when they need that immediate support, financial support. These are in relation to energy, electricity and gas, but there are also a similar system in water for the big water providers, Sydney Water and Hunter Water, for customers who are having difficulty with their water bills, and that's looked after directly through the Sydney Water and Hunter Water, who are the providers of the water services there. Another case study. So in this one, the financial counsellor was having trouble getting the retailer to apply the vouchers to the account. So, and there was an issue, and it all came back, as I'm sure you can appreciate. There's always one which you think is a little issue. The customer couldn't get these vouchers applied to the account, but then the reason is because it's a bigger issue, it's more complicated, and it all went back to what was the tariff, what was the structure of the customer's account. And so in referring the customer to EWON, we were able to fix the tariff issue with the retailer. And that takes quite a lot of backwards and forwards between the retailer, the network. And so it's not something that's a quick, easy fix. But in this case example, in the end, after that complicated issue was fixed, the retailer reissued the bills, made sure everything else was sorted out for the customer, and including applying a customer service gesture in the end for the amount of time it took to resolve the complaint. I've mentioned a few of our resources on our website. We have our Spotlight on Systemic Issues reports. We have a regular quarterly report, which is called EWON Insights. Our latest community worker newsletter came out only last week. So we don't send a lot out, so we're not going to totally bombard you if you sign up to our publications. But we send out things that we think that are important for everybody to know. So please jump on our website if you're interested and subscribe to our publications. Well, I hope that's given you all a good understanding of what we do. There's plenty of information on our website, and we're also active on social media as well.
Thanks very much, Stephanie, and I'm glad that you were able to swap offices and get the sound working so that you could share that information.
Thanks, Bridget.
I'd like to welcome now Dr. Craig Latham, Executive Director of the Australian Small Business and Family Enterprise Ombudsman. Excuse me, everybody, for more flicking. I'm just going to move forward in the presentation so we can get to Craig's slides. Thank you, Craig.
Thanks, and hopefully my sound is working today. But I wanted to start by recognising that I come to you from the land of the Ngunnawal people here in Canberra. As Bridget mentioned, Craig Latham, Executive Director of Assistance and Data Analytics with the Ombudsman, and also General Counsel here. I'll move through the slides fairly quickly, but what I'm after doing is telling you a bit of a story about what small business looks like, which are the folk that we help, how we actually help, and the types of disputes that we're seeing. So the first slide is a small business snapshot. So that's the next slide. Thank you. And so this one just steps through some of the diversity that is small business. There's a lot of them, 2.5 million. That's 98% of all businesses. Now, that's using the ABS, the Australian Bureau of Stats definition, which is 19 or fewer employees. Our own definition is, and we regard small business as up to having 100 employees. So that takes it well up into that sort of 99% of all businesses. The small businesses, again, using the ABS definition, over 5 million people are employed in small business, $500 billion contributed to the economy, but almost half of the owners are aged 50 plus, and only 8% are less than 30 years. So it tells you a little bit about some of the trajectory of small business. A third of small business owners are women, and that's doubled since the 1970s and continues to rise. 1 in 3 small business owners were born outside Australia. 43% of small businesses, though, fail to make a profit. And when you zoom in on self-employed small business owners, so these are like professionals and others who don't have employees, 75% of those who do work full-time get less than the average full-time wage. So again, it tells you another bit of the story of some of the pressures on small business. Nearly 2/3 of small business owners are working greater than 39 hours, and yet do more volunteer work than others. 20% of them actually do volunteer work in addition to running their business. So really modest incomes, tight margins, and in the current economy, increasing costs as well. Trusted advice is really important for small businesses, as well as right-size regulation, proportionality from regulators around the way that systems are administered. I'm saying this particularly because small businesses are not shrink-wrapped big businesses. They don't have a separate HR department, a separate tax unit, separate in-house lawyers. It's one person often doing a multitude of roles. So the next slide gives you a bit of a feel for that employment. You can see that dark blue area is the self-employing, so those with no employees, so well over half have no employees, getting up to 2/3. And then those small businesses with 1 to 4 employees take up the bulk. So what we're talking about, 80% overall, is less than 5 employees. It again points to sort of the limitations on infrastructure that small businesses have and the resources that they can draw upon when they get into difficulties, disputes. The next slide, though, I do really enjoy because it shows the impact that small business is having. It would be generally on younger folk, but it's anyone of any age who's an apprentice or trainee. Small businesses employ 42% of all apprentices and trainees. And when you compare that against medium and large business, they're 27 and 24% respectively. So significantly more than the larger businesses. So really helping with the future of Australia. The next slide gives you a bit of a feel for where the Australian small businesses are located. So 2/3 or over 2/3 of small businesses are in a greater capital city, with just under 1/3 in regional areas. And this roughly follows the spread of population in Australia. The next slide gives you the breakdowns between the various states and territory. And you'll see Sydney is pretty, Sydney/New South Wales mirrors that overall sort of state across the nation. But you'll see that Hobart and Brisbane are less centred on the capitals, and it's probably to do with some of the larger, especially in Tasmania, some of the larger other areas as well inside there. But it's interesting to see that it does vary. The situation of where small business is operating from does vary significantly across states and territories. Again, though, that will mirror roughly the sort of population spreads as well. Next slide is about the age of small business owners, and I touched on the sort of the ageing population here. And this is just a snapshot comparing 2021 to 1976. And you'll see in 76, you had a good, that blue section, a good amount of entrepreneurs, small business owners coming through and peaking in that sort of 30 to 49 years and then tailing off. Nowadays, that blue section, the under 30 years, the newer entrepreneurs, small business owners, has diminished significantly. And the grey one, which is since you're 50 years and older, has actually become the top segment of that population as well. So again, it's important to note that thinking about how small business owners will often have invested in their business as their superannuation, and if you don't have another cohort coming through to purchase those, it does impact lifestyle and ability to retire as you age as well. The next slide just shows a little bit of a feel around predominantly women coming through in the lower sections of those, the younger sections of those. You'll see that blue line is the blue chart is the female, and you'll see that that cohort is exceeding male small business owners up to, well, in that 30, certainly in that 30 to 49, even the 59 age group. So you'll see that wave of sort of female entrepreneurship coming through. So that gives you a bit of a feel for the sort of lay of the land, the diversity, some of the stresses around small business. On the next slide, this is a slide just to show you a little bit about what our office does. We're under a piece of legislation, so we've got our own legislation that we're set up under, and it gives us a couple of functions. One's assistance and one is advocacy. And as an organisation, this is how this slide shows how we've separated out our operations. So we've got small and family business advocacy. So this is bringing the voice of small business to policy considerations. We do our own inquiries as well. So we've done one recently into Commonwealth procurement, looking at how small business gets involved in that. But there's been a whole range of different types of inquiries and work we've done over time, running across the whole gamut of where small business is involved. On the left-hand side there, you'll see the economic data and analytics, and I really recommend our website to you to have a look at. We've got a small business data portal that we're adding to and improving over time as well. So it's already got a vast amount of material around the nature and types of small businesses, the spreads, all that sort of data that I've been talking from is there, plus a lot more. We also have what we'll call guidance and communications. And that's around getting the message of small business out, but also talking about our services. The guidance is to help small businesses deal with various types of issues. So, for example, and I'll talk about this probably a little bit more later as well, we've done some guidance work around engaging a search engine optimization type person or a website designer and so forth, digital providers, and looking at the way that small businesses can choose well and have a good relationship there that doesn't end up in dispute, because we do see a lot of those. And then moving to that right-hand side segment, the commercial disputes area is for both business-to-business disputes and business-to-government disputes. This is where the definition of small business up to 100 employees, that can be any one of those Bs. It doesn't have to be both sides of a transaction. So we can have small business to large business disputes. We can have small business to government disputes in there as well. The service is a free service, I should say largely free service. There is one area where co-payment is made, but basically we will assist you with disputes, no wrong door approach, get you to the right person or assist for free. The next slide delves a little bit into our assistance side, really open to numerous channels to bring disputes to us. We've got our info line, which is a telephone type service. We've got online forms, web forms that you can fill in with disputes. We can be contacted by email and telephone more generally. This slide also points to some of the specific areas inside that small business assistance area, and they are the small business tax concierge, which I will actually step through in a bit of detail. But we also help with the dispute resolution side under a number of industry codes, including that franchising, dairy, horticulture and oil industry codes. Will be specified in, I think, the majority of those as being the dispute resolution advisor. The two approaches that we do take is one of guidance, which I've mentioned. So we help with things like our 5 steps to resolve a dispute. So these are the normal sort of steps that you'd go through, although many often wouldn't go through when they approached us. But the recommended steps of sort of reaching out to the other party, saying what it is that you've got in dispute about, looking at ways to resolve a letter of demand as appropriate, and then having us as a escalation point inside that. Dispute support tool is another one that's on our website. Again, this just is within sort of normally about 3 clicks. You can find out the best agency to help with whatever dispute that you might have as a small business person. And we do those best practice guides and case studies as well. Dispute resolution side, we deal with those business to business, business to government type disputes. What our mantra is to keep small businesses out of formal legal action, out of court, and seek to resolve through alternative dispute resolution. Predominantly that will be mediation, but we've got a broad range of dispute resolution processes we can apply, which include conciliation, neutral evaluation, case appraisal and conferencing as well. And there is arbitration under some of the codes as an additional potential process. We deal with about 7,000 disputes, or generally in excess of 7,000 disputes a year. Do take that no wrong door approach. We de-escalate matters, we clarify what the issues are, and help empower small businesses to actually deal with their disputes and hopefully preserve good commercial relationships. In about half of those coming to us, we get the right information so that people can navigate their way. About a quarter, we will refer them to another agency, so we don't duplicate the services of another agency. It's an unusual section in our legislation that many do not have, but our legislation specifies that we are not to duplicate, we're to get you to the best spot. Now, having said that, about a quarter of the cases, there isn't a better spot than us, and that's where our case managers will help to de-escalate, clarify, get you to dispute resolution. Now, that dispute resolution mediation does come at a cost to the parties. It's done through independent of our office, but we have a list that we help get people off to. And as I mentioned as well, there is those codes of conduct, and we get about 500 complaints through that channel as well. Now, as part of our powers, we've got 2 very specific powers that we use to help here as well. One is the power to demand documents, information and explanations. So we can actually do a formal notice to a party, normally it's the other side to the person who comes to us, to sort of explain or give us some information about how best to or to explain the situation. We would normally not do formal ones. We will normally start informally, which is our normal approach, and as specified in our legislation, another interesting provision there. And so, yeah, we will normally just ask for it. We normally get people just volunteering the information because normally people do want to actually resolve disputes, not always. But in situations where that is not the case, then we can formally demand it. Also, the Ombudsman can make recommendations as to the best process to deal with a dispute, which could be direct engagement, but it's often alternative dispute resolution. And should then either or both parties refuse to engage in that, that's something that then can be publicised. Very rare for us to do that. I think we've done probably about 5 of those since our office started back in about 2016. So it's rare to do it, but it's a useful signal to other small businesses dealing with businesses who just are refusing to seek to resolve a dispute that they may encounter similar difficulties. The next slide is about our small business tax concierge service. So this is where it clocks on predominantly once you've gone through all the processes with the ATO around raising an issue and seeking to resolve it. It's where you get to the end of the line, you get a negative decision letter from the ATO, normally following an audit where the ATO disagrees with you. And there's a question then what you do with it as a small business owner. And so this service actually, for $100 co-payment, I think it's the only payment other than the various mediation processes that where a payment is required. And then we will get you an hour with a tax litigator to give you a feel for whether it's worth actually going on to appeal to the AAT, the Administrative Appeals Tribunal. Mostly, parties will pick up that first hour. 85% of them won't actually continue to the second hour. Gives you a bit of a reality check as to your likelihood. It gives you an avenue to be able to actually raise the issue, and because often it will be just wanting to raise the issue and choosing then whether or not to pursue it. Had a lot of action through that area around JobKeeper and cash flow boost. So where there's changes in the taxation environment, it's a particularly a useful service. Also will advise around the very unknown Commonwealth thing called the Compensation for Detriment Caused by Defective Administration Scheme, the CDDA, which can get some payments to recognise sort of the pain and suffering, sort of the costs of defective administration. Inside the most recent budget as well, there was an announcement that there will be an expansion of that tax concierge service to cover other of our disputes as well. So similar sort of, you can imagine it's similar to that, but will actually extend out to various of the codes and our other general disputes. Now, the next slide is just a quick one just to touch through some of the sorts of issues that we see. 40% of our cases sit inside debt. So these are not arguments over quality of service or good, but purely somebody not paying somebody else. So that's 40% of them. The majority of the others will have some substantive elements to it. We do get quite a number of digital platform provider disputes, doubled over the last couple of years. This is often where a person may be locked out, a small business owner may be locked out of their account, may have been hacked. There could be issues around community standards and breaches of those. There is an absurdity in the system that says when you get hacked, you should go into your account and lodge your complaint and seek to get it resolved, but you're locked out of your system. And so we've got cut through there. We've got established real person contacts across the various digital platforms so that we can actually break that circular thing. Mental health, we have got a real focus around that. We're seeing a real hardening of our cases, a more difficult case resolution. 1 in 5 small business owners has been diagnosed with a mental health condition. And again, we will help people get to services. We're not mental health folk, but we will help get people to the spot that can help. Also seeing the rise in increasing number of economic coercion and abuse cases. So this is where often it is with women. So 16% of women in Australia have actually experienced economic abuse, 7.8% of men. Where we see it is in small businesses where a partner, often following a relationship breakup, will find that their family assets are impacted, they can't access business information, they have received trust or not received trust distributions made on paper, never actually received, but they've got the tax debt for it, access to bank accounts, and find that they may be a director and liable for various company debts as guarantor as well, which they did not know. And I think I have run out of time, so I will stop at that point.
Thank you very much, Craig, for sharing that information with our audience. And I'd like to thank everybody who has presented today on behalf of their services. We do have a few questions, and we've got a little bit of time left, thankfully. Thank you everyone for keeping to time as well. So the first question is whether any of your services are available Australia-wide.
Yep, AFCA is Australia-wide. So anybody across the whole of Australia can lodge a complaint with AFCA.
Aspifio the same.
Great, thank you.
For E1, sorry, I should say
yeah.
E1, so we are just New South Wales, but there is the equivalent in most states. There's one in Queensland, Energy Ombudsman Queensland, Victoria, South Australia, and then with the other states, it can be, or most commonly, as part of the Parliamentary Ombudsman.
Thank you, Stephanie. Brianna, are you aware of an equivalent in your state, in other states for the Healthcare Complaints Commission?
Yes, the equivalent is AHPRA across Australia, except for the Ombudsman, the Health Ombudsman in Queensland, who have jurisdiction there, as the Healthcare Complaints Commission has jurisdiction in New South Wales. But AHPRA oversees certainly the registration of all health practitioners across the country.
Thank you. And Jacqueline, I don't know if you're still with us or able to respond.
I'm here, but I think it's already been covered. There's state and territory and a Commonwealth Ombudsman that cover very similar terrain to us. So, yes, everybody's pretty much covered. Why have I gone blurry? Never mind.
I'm not sure.
You know
We've
what I
had some
look like.
technological challenges today, that's certainly for sure. And I appreciate everybody's forbearance around that. We have a question for you, April. Can a bank be allowed or an ombudsman encouraged to extend a home occupier mortgage interest only beyond 5 years? They've also said apparently the financial regulator imposition is overturnable by an ombudsman. Not sure if that's something you can address.
What I can say, I can't give, a specific answer. All I can say is, it depends on the individual facts and circumstances of each case as to what we can do. And the law and the Banking Code of Practice says that a bank needs to provide genuine consideration to an individual person's request for hardship assistance. And an appropriate outcome based on that individual person's facts and circumstances. You may have seen in the media, what I would say the last couple of days, that ASIC is the regulator, and they have recently released a report on Australia's top 30 lenders about their hardship processes, and they've identified some real deficiencies in the way that hardship is being identified and the processes that apply to people. So if you do find yourself in that position, consider lodging a complaint or talking to your bank.
What's the time frame with AFCA in which you would encourage people to lodge complaints?
There's some time limits in certain streams for people to lodge complaints, and that information is set out on our website. So given the time, I won't go into detail. But if you have, for a hardship complaint, for example, you can lodge a complaint at any given point in time as part of the process. And so you may be in hardship or may have been in hardship at some point over the life of the loan, but that doesn't prevent you from lodging a complaint at any time. So anytime you're unsatisfied with the response that's provided by your bank.
Okay. This question, I asked that because we have a question not in relation to financial hardship, but a problem where a customer had incorrectly transferred money to the wrong person and made a complaint to the bank immediately, and the bank said they would follow it up and neglected to. and that was over 4 years ago. So the person is wondering whether it's too
Yeah, you
late for
can
them
still
to
come
make
and
a
lodge a
complaint.
complaint. Yeah, no, it's not too late.
Okay, thank you. And they're all the questions that we have at this point. We've got about a minute or so left if there are any other burning questions that our audience has.
I can fill in that for 30 seconds and just say the non-AFCA disputes, the non-AFCA member disputes, so these are like the third-tier lenders, we get a lot of those as well, and a real problem. So one of my core messages is always to double check that the person you're dealing with is actually an AFCA member, because when you're outside that, you get into all sorts of issues. And we do help with them, and sometimes very successfully, but bane of our existence.
Thank you for that, Craig. That's helpful information and good advice for our audience. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today, and to our presenters for sharing such valuable information for our audience. Just to let people know, there's one final webinar being run by Legal Aid tomorrow, where you can hear about what a magistrate, a barrister and a solicitor do in their daily work. If you'd like to learn about what those people do in their roles, sometimes it can be a bit of a mystery if you work outside of the legal system. So that's being run tomorrow from 1 to 2:30 if you'd like to join. So thanks everybody for sharing your information about your services today, and thank you to our Auslan interpreter, Donna, and we'll say goodbye now. So thanks everybody.